place value and what it means yesterday. So today we're gonna review again what we reviewed yesterday. So you're gonna watch that clip first, and then we're gonna come back and talk about this. All right? Okay. Enjoy. So when we are looking at place value and we're looking at the individual place and the place next to it, going up, we're getting bigger, times 10, by 10. By means multiply, remember? So we're multiplying 1 times 10 to get 10. Then we're multiplying 10 times 10 to get 100. Then we're multiplying 100 times 10 to get 1,000. Then we're going to multiply 1,000 times 10 to get 10,000. Then we're going to multiply 10,000 times 10 to get 100,000. And it just keeps going and going and going. When we are talking about the stuff behind our decimal, we are talking about taking one individual one, so only one, and breaking it into 10 pieces. So we're taking this one and we're breaking it into pieces kind of like this, that our hundreds pieces are in, because they're just sliced. We're just slicing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on this one. And then we're going to take those 10 pieces and split them into 10 pieces. So we're just talking about one. When we're talking about the decimal, we're talking about one whole, not many wholes, but we're talking about one whole that we've split into many pieces. And we split them into 10 pieces first, so they're called tenths. And then we split them into, we split those 10 pieces into 10 pieces, and that's called hundredths. Because if you take 10 pieces and you split them up, you're going to have 100 pieces. And then you take those 100 pieces, and each one of those 100 pieces you're splitting into 10 pieces. So we're going to now have 1,000 pieces, and that's called thousandths. So we have tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So now that you've reviewed how much it takes to get to each place value, and it is how much? 10, because we are working in base 10. Our number system is base 10, so we're always going to be working in groups of 10. We're always trying to get groups of 10 because that's how we move along. You cannot have more than 10 in each place value, okay? Hopefully that makes sense, because once you have 10, you have 0 ones and you have a group of 10. Once you have 100, you have 0 ones, 0 tens, and you have a group of 100. So once we get to those 10 groups that we're looking for, we're moving in our place value. All right, so today we're going to practice and review some more stuff that I know you've heard of. You've heard of expanded form before, and you've heard of base 10 form, which is the blocks which I used, which Miss Rickards used, which Miss Armstrong used. So they all used it, okay? So we're going to write in a number. I'm actually going to do mine on sticky notes so I can keep this blank just for like future practice. But you're going to write it into your notebook. Okay, so we're going to build a number, and then we're going to talk about the different parts of it, or the different ways that we can represent it. So we are going to start at the billions, and we're just gonna pick random numbers. So whatever I write down, I want you guys to write down, so we have the same number, so we're practicing the same thing. This will change eventually because you guys have your number cards, which you need to cut out. You should have cut out yesterday so that you can use them, okay? So we're gonna do 5, 2, 9, 6, 8, 1, 4, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to start repeating numbers. We're going to do 2, 3, So I want you to pause the video and try to say this number. Okay, I want you to try to say this number to the best of your abilities. I just want you to pause it and say it and then press play so we can move on. Okay, so but I want you to try to say this number and then we're going to see if you were correct. Okay, so the 4 different forms or ways that we're going to represent this is going to be the standard form. So you're going to kind of have like 4 square. This is still on the same page, page 29, I think. It's still wherever this is at because we didn't fill in the bottom. So you're going to do kind of like 4 square. You might have to wait till you write the standard form to see how much room you have because I don't want you to like have smashed stuff. But that's what you're going to do. So you can wait till we get to each form and then write them down. I'm just going to write them down ahead so that I know where they go. First one we're going to talk about is standard form, and this is just the numerical form. Numerical has num in it, so it's going to be numbers. So this is going to be the numerical form. Meaning whenever you see in math, write it in its standard form. What we want is just the numbers. We don't want anything else. You're going to put commas because they're part of the number now. But you aren't going to put like extra stuff. You're just, whenever you see write the answer in standard form, we just want the numbers, the digits. Okay? So we're going to rewrite this number down here in standard form. We have 5, then we have a comma because we're leaving this house. We have 2, 9, 6, comma. We have 8, 1, 4, comma. 7, 3, 2, decimal, 4, 5, 6. So there's our number written in standard form. When you practice how to say it, did you get it correctly? Let's find out. It is 5,296,814,732 and 456 hundredths. So that's how you would say it. We're going to talk more about it when we get down to this written part. Over here, expanded form. You guys have been practicing expanded form for a really, really long time. That means that you take the number and you are separating each individual place value. So if you just had 732, just this hundreds part of it, when you expand it, you take out the 7. Well, how much is the 7 worth? Is it worth 7? No, it's worth 700. So you would take it out and you would write 700 plus, and then you would take out the 3. Well, how much is the 3 worth? What is the value of its place? Is it just a 3? No, it's 30 because it's in the tens place. And then you would add the last one, which is 2. Is it just a 2? Yes, because it is in the ones place. So you remember expanded form, you are just taking the value and you're putting zeros as opposed to putting the 3 in the tens place and the 2 in the ones place. You're just putting the zeros. As opposed to putting the 2 in the ones place, you're putting a 0. You're breaking it all apart and you're expanding it. You're stretching it all the way out. So this number is going to be huge because we went all the way up to the billions and we're going all the way down to the thousands. But do you remember what expanded form is? You should, because you have been talking about it for quite some time now. So if you don't, you might want to practice this. Make sure that you practice this because we're not going to review it a lot because it's stuff that you should have come to me knowing. Okay? So we're going to talk about expanded form. And what that means is we are taking the value. So when we talk about place value, we're taking the value of this digit in this place. The value of this digit in this place. Well, what is the value of the 4 in the thousands place? It's 4,000. Okay? So when we do this, we start with our biggest number, which is 5. And it's just 1 because it's in the ones place of the house. So it's just 5 billion. Okay? So we're going to pull it out and we're gonna write the number 5 billion. Well, how many sets of zeros does it have behind it? It's gonna have this whole house, everything else is gonna zero out. It's gonna have this whole house, which is 3 zeros. So there's our million house. Then it's gonna have our 1,000 house. Then it's gonna have our ones, tens, hundred house. You can, if you want, this is not necessary, but you can if you want, you can put the 3 zeros for the house behind it, okay? And then we're gonna add our next place value, which is here. It's the 2, what? What is the value of this 2 in the house? It's 100. So it's the 200 million place. So we're gonna do 200 for the millions house. Now we're at the thousands house, 3 zeros. Now we're at the hundreds, ones, tens, hundreds. I'm not gonna put these. You can if you want, it's just gonna save me space right now. So then we're at the 9 in the millions house, and this is the, if it's a 10, if it's in the tens place, how much is the 9 worth? Is it worth 900? Is it worth 9? Is it worth 90? Which value does it have? If it's in the tens place of the millions, it's 90 million. So we're gonna write 90 million, which is 90 followed by 0, 0, 0, followed by 0, 0, 0. Then we're gonna add it to the 6. The 6 is in the ones place of the millions house. This is 6 million. So it represents 6 million. It's a single, it's the ones place. So we're gonna go 6, comma, 0, 0, 0, comma, 0, 0, 0, plus. Now we're in the thousands house. This 8 is in the hundreds place in the thousands house. Is it 8? Is it 800? Or is it 80? How much is this 8 worth if it's in the hundreds place? It's worth 800,000. So we're gonna write 800,000. Plus, we're in the tens place. This 1, is it 100? Is it 10? Is it 1? If it's in the tens place, it's 10,000. Plus, this 4, it's in the ones place and the thousands place. So is it 4? Is it 400? Or is it 40? It's 4 because it's in the ones place. So it's 4,000. You see how this is kind of working? Then we're gonna add, now we're in the ones, tens, hundreds house. This 7, it's in the hundreds place. Is it 700? Is it 70? Is it 7? It's 700. Now we move on to the 3. The 3, is it 300? Is it 3? Is it 3? 30. Well, it's in the tens place, and if I have 3 tens, I have 30. The 2, is it in the ones place? It's in the ones place, so is it worth 2? Is it worth 20? Is it worth 200? It's worth 2. Now we're going to add our house, and it's gonna get a little bit tricky. So I always put a 0 to represent that there's no ones, and then I put my decimal. Okay, it's not a period because we're not writing, it's a decimal. And we start here, so 4 tenths. So we're gonna put 4, and we're gonna 0 everything out behind it. You could just leave these off, so you have 4 tenths, because that's what that reads as, is 4 tenths. And then we're gonna add, and we're gonna put a 0. And then we're gonna put a 0 where our 4 is, because now we're talking about the hundredths place. And it's 5, and we're gonna put a 0 behind it. And so this is 50, no, this is 5 hundredths. If we just have it, it's 5 hundredths. That's 4 tenths, this is 5 hundredths. And then we're going to add, put a 0, put 2 zeros, because we're taking up these 2 spots. And we're gonna put 6, and this is 6 thousandths. When we put the house together, it changes. We don't say 4 tenths 500, 6,000. So we don't read it like that. We put it together just like we do here. We say 814,000. Okay? We're going to do the same thing here. We're getting to that part right now. So when we write it, we are going to write our number exactly how we say it. So we have to be really, really aware of how we say things now, because we're going to start using a lot of stuff behind the decimal. And this decimal means and. All right? So sometimes we hear people say, I have $732. So that doesn't actually make sense, because when you say and you're talking about numbers, it means that there's a decimal. Okay? So we no longer say and between our hundreds and our tens place. That's a no-no. We only say and if there's a decimal. Think about when you talk about fractions and you're doing like a recipe. Have any of you guys ever cooked? Say you're doing a recipe and it says, calls for 2 1/2 cups of flour. When you read it as 2 1/2, because and means you're adding a part of it. So as soon as you say and you hear people say and, you should think of parts, you shouldn't think of wholes, because we're no longer talking about wholes. Okay? So we only say and when we are talking about the decimal and we're about to list parts of stuff. All right? So when we say words out loud, we start with our biggest value, and in this case, it's 5 billion. So the reason why we talk about houses is because whenever we leave a house and we go to jump a comma fence, we go to jump the fence to go to the next house, we have to say the house's name. So I want you guys to think about, have you ever got any mail to your home and it says, like, I'll use my house for example, it will say like the Yale family, or like when we send out cards on holidays, it will say love the Yale family, because we're like clumping us together. That's what we're doing when we leave this house after we say the last number and we jump the fence into the next house. We have to say its name. Like our last name is just important. It's like their last name, and we have to say it. The only place we don't say it is here, because this is the original house that has ones, tens, and hundreds in it. So we don't have to say that because we're already doing it. So because they're the original ones, we don't have to say their name because everybody knows they're original. So when we say this, we're going to say 5 billion, because there's only 5. If there was like a 3 here, we would say 35 billion. But we're saying it because we're getting ready to jump the fence to the next house. So we're going to write this down. It's going to be a lot of writing, but I know you can do it. The written form is going to be word form. Write this up here. And so we're going to start with 5. And you can't, when you're writing this in word form, you can't write the number 5 and billion. That's not word form. That's you being lazy. Okay? So you have to spell out the word. There's actually references in here on how to spell words. Right here on the second page of your reference, right down the side. So there's no excuse for you not to be spelling things. So we're going to start with 5. We're going to spell 5, and then we're going to write billion, because we are saying the house's name. We're not going to write billions, 5 billions. We don't. That's not how we talk. That's not proper. So we write 5 billion, and then we're going to hop the fence. Well, when we hop the fence, we have to put that we're hopping the fence. So just like in our number, wherever there's a comma, we're going to put a comma in our words. Okay? So we have 5 billion, comma. Now we're going to say this house just as this number, and then say its name before we leave. So how would you say just this number right here? You would say 296. You're not going to say 296. You're going to say 296 million. So we're going to write 296 million. And if you remember, I talked about how the ones place is like the baby of the family, and the tens place is always holding its hand. Why I said that is because when we write a number like 96, it's hyphenated, meaning there's a hyphen, that little dash that you sometimes see, holding it together. That's the handhold right there.
It's holding on to that ones place, okay? So when we write it, we're gonna have 5,200,000,000, because that's how we would say this word if it was in the original house. We were gonna say 200 We're going to do 90 and hold the hand. There's our hand hold. 6. And that's it. 296. And then we're saying the house name, which is million, not millions. Okay? And then we're going to put a comma because we're done with that house and we're getting ready to jump the fence into the thousands house. So we have 5,296,000,000, comma. Say this number. 814, not 814, because if it's and, it's going to be a decimal. So it's 800. And we're going to say 14. And when it's a teen, we don't have a hyphen because the word 14 is one word. So when our numbers in our 1s and 10 places are in the teens, they're in that really fun age. You're not there yet, but you'll be there soon. And so they're not holding anybody's hand. They just are kind of together. For the teens are together. So we're going to say 814. And then that's it. And so we're going to put a comma because we're going to jump the fence. Oh no, we have to say thousand, sorry. So we have 5,296,814. We got to say the house name, which is thousand, not thousands, because that doesn't make sense. 1,000. We're putting a comma because we're jumping into the 1s, 10s, 100s, our original house, and we're going to read that number, which is 732. And now we have a baby again. 30. So we have to hold the 1's hand, which is a 2, so we have to put a hyphen. 32, and we don't have to say 100, so we don't have to say 732 hundreds, because it's original, so we don't have to do all of that. So right now, if we didn't have anything behind the decimal alley, we would have 5,296,814,732. And now we're at the decimal alley, which I said we were going to say what word? And. We don't have a comma, we don't put a period. So we say and now you're going to read that number. So you're going to read that number as is. Just read it as is. Don't think about this house. You have 456. So that's what we're going to write. And then we're going to say its name at the end. So 450, holding baby's hand, 6. And then the last place where there's a digit. So in this instance, it's in the thousandths place. We are going to write thousandths. We're going to name it based on where the last one ends. So if it ended here, we would say 45 hundredths. If it ended here, we would say 4 tenths. But because it ends all the way here, we're going to say 456 thousandths. Okay? So that is how you write numbers. Our number is 5,296,000,000 house name, 814,000 house name, 732, we don't have to have a house name because it's original, and 456 thousandths because that's where our last digit is. Does everybody see that? I hope so, because when we come back we're going to practice this a lot. Okay, so keep this in mind when you are reading numbers. And those of you who are like, this is not important for me and I don't really care about it. Well, if you don't like making money, don't worry about this, okay? Because when you get older and people read you something that has to do with your money and they say it incorrectly, that's the difference between you making $1,000 more, $10,000 more, but you're right now like, I didn't even care about that stuff in 5th grade. Here I am as an adult and I don't even know if you're ripping me off or not. You're gonna wanna make sure you know how to do this. So you need to know how to say numbers correctly so that when you get older, you're getting your money correctly, all right? Base 10 representation, we are not gonna get the blocks out, but when you're asked to represent this, you're gonna draw. What we're gonna do is we are going to not do this whole number, obviously, because we're not gonna draw 5 billion. We're just gonna stop at go from the 4,732, and we're not gonna do this because we'd have to split them up and we're just not there yet. So our number that we're gonna use is 4,732. So I want you to think about how you would represent this if you were going to show this number with base 10 representation. So we're gonna model this with this. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw stuff to represent it. So we're gonna draw 1,000 blocks. If you remember what our 1,000 block looked like, it was that big block of 1,000 pieces. We're not gonna draw 1,000 pieces, obviously. We're just gonna draw a box and then write 1,000 in it, because if I'm modeling it and I draw something and I say this is worth 1,000, you're gonna say, oh, that's worth 1,000. But we're not gonna take the time to draw all the little things. We don't got time like that. So we're gonna draw 1,000 box, meaning we're gonna draw a cube. And this is worth 1,000. Well, how many do I need? I need 4, so I'm gonna draw 4 of them. If you can't do it, I want you to do the best that you can. We're not looking for perfect, we're looking for try and bravery. So I have 4,000. Now I'm gonna draw hundreds. What does my hundreds look like? They were those flat ones. So I'm just gonna draw some squares. How many do I need? I need 7 of them. And each one of these is worth how much? 100. So I'm going to write 100 in here. Now I'm going to draw how many tens. And you remember the tens? They were those rods. How many tens am I going to draw? I'm going to draw 3 of them because I have 3 tens. So I have 30. I'll have 30. So there's 1. There's 2, there's 3. Each one of these is worth how much? 10. And then how many ones am I going to draw? 2. And they're each worth 1. So I have 4,732. So this is representing in base 10. It's using a model to represent what we're being asked for. So if you ever see something like this and it says what number is being represented, you have to count them up, okay? Or if you're asked to like, what does this number look like in base 10 representations, you have to show that there's 4,000, there's 700, there's 3 tens and 2 ones, so that it equals 4,732, all right? Okay. So make sure that when you come back live, you have your number card so we can practice. And your whiteboard that I gave you. So your laminated sheet of paper and a whiteboard marker.